So, when did you first become interested in creating art?
When I first started doing drugs like psychedelics, and I was like, how can I continue this experience, keep it with me? And someone on Reddit said, like, do art. And so, like, I started tripping and I started, like, making art. And I was like, oh, like, this psychedelic art, like, is so cool. And then I got sober and I, like, actually, like, fell in love with it. And I was like, okay, like, I fucks with this. And so then I've just, like, stuck with it since. And I got into that when I was 17. And I got sober right before my 18th birthday. And I was going to, I took a gap year and then I went to school as an engineering major. And then after a year, I changed my major to art because I was like, I don't like this.
Yeah. So, why did you choose like spray painting as your medium in general?
So during that gap year, after I went to rehab, I went to sober living, and like I was like just getting into art. I hadn't been doing like that long. I never took an art class in high school, and it was COVID. It was like the beginning of COVID is 2020, and one of the activities we would do would be go into this free expression tunnel because we couldn't meet other people outside the program. So we'd play like basketball together, like spike ball, volleyball, soccer, like just a lot of shit. And one of the things was going to this free expression tunnel in Raleigh, North Carolina. So it was we lived in Raleigh and it was on NC State's campus, and it was like completely free. Like anyone can come up and just like spray paint the walls. And because that was one of the things we did, they saw that I really liked it, and they had this passion project thing where they'd hook you up with like a mentor. Some people do like jujitsu or like cooking. And so the guy who led it was like a photographer, and he got me hooked up with a muralist, graffiti artist guy to teach me, and Morgan. So I'm like still in contact with him today. And then he was like, he laid down the foundation for me to like, because I eventually moved out of North Carolina, went back home to parents in Virginia before going to college that I took a gap year from in Pennsylvania for a year as an engineering major and then a year as an art major before transferring to VCU. But he taught me like everything I needed to know to like build upon to be like where I'm at today, because I didn't leave good like I am now. But once I started spray painting and like really get into it, I was like, this is the most fun shit ever. Like there's no other art medium that like compares. It was like, this is just the next best thing. And it's not let down. Like it's continued to be that for me. Like it's just the most fun. Tattooing was up there for a while, but it's just like bigger's better for me.
Yeah, that's super dope. Yeah, I do like a little bit of spray paint myself, so I think that's really cool to see.
Heck yeah.
Are there any like themes or messages that you try to communicate through your art? Like I noticed that I think it was like at Armstrong High School you did something like a program there. So if you can like talk a bit about that.
Yeah, so I've been teaching there since 2023 after school. And I met Koshak, our teacher. It's kind of a funny story, and I like told him this. But I was like spray painting. I was doing like I think it was Chaos Alley. This VCU student started this thing where she got a bunch of like vendors out selling art, and then music people would come out and perform. And it rained and it got canceled because it was in her alley, like behind her apartment on Marshall Street. But then it was because of the rain, it got moved to like an art gallery on Broad, like Black Iris or something like that. And so I was like spray painting outside, and I was like just doing my thing. And then I just like asked, and this was before I like made videos of like going up to people like asking to spray paint shirts for free. But like I asked this girl to spray paint her shirt for free, and she was like, oh, fine, but like nothing bad. I'm like, no, it won't be bad. It was just kind of like some lettering, graffiti stuff. It looked like a tagged wall kind of, but it was cool because she was wearing a white shirt. So I was like painting her shirt, and I was like, yo, who's the guy over there like filming us? Like, because I thought it was like a homeless dude. I was like, this is weird. And she was like, oh, that used to be my art teacher. I was like, oh, okay. And then after I painted her shirt, I ended up like talking to him for like hours. And it was like a great conversation. I told him how like I worked with kids pretty much my whole life. And he was like, we would love to have that at our school. And I was like, all right. And so it took a while to get like the government stuff set up. And so I was kind of like volunteering at first. But then eventually, like now I'm like an RPS employee. Like I have an ID number and like a badge. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And last year I won the like 21st Century Employee of the Year or something. So that was like pretty cool because I was definitely like really like dedicated to it. I was like doing it every day. But now like with my schedule, I only do it once a week. But I don't like do it for the money because it's like it doesn't pay the best. But it's just because it's like so like close to home. And it's also like I want to pursue more teaching, especially within the realm of spray paint, because I don't think there's enough scholastic coverage in that sort of realm. Like no one teaches that. So yeah.
That's cool. I mean, how do you like? How's it like working with kids, especially with like doing art and stuff and recovery?
Definitely difficult. I think Armstrong, the kids, in my experience, has been like very hard to like focus, but it's like nice because I think it like sharpens me into being like the best possible teacher, working with like kids with like least possible attention spans. So it's like, how can you keep it interesting? But I think it's definitely really beneficial for like my growth as a person to be in like an environment like that. Because for example, like in art school, like VCU, the professor can talk for 20, 30 minutes and everyone's going to pay attention the whole time, you know? Whereas like here, it's like I talk for 2 minutes and they're going to like already start yelling, you know? So it's like, I have to like adapt. So what was the question again?
Well, I was asking like, how is it like working with kids and then like,
okay,
also coping with like recovery at the same time?
Yeah, recovery wise, like I do a lot of like 12-step stuff. That's definitely like my path with that. Yeah.
What artists or like people have influenced your style, or is it just like the environment or like media?
Belin, BELIN.ES is like his website online. He's a Spaniard. He does like a lot of murals. He's kind of like if Pablo Picasso picked up spray paint and did like cubism, but kind of like realistic. Because like Picasso's interesting because he like was like an amazing painter as a kid, and like when he was like 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, he was like painting realistically better than like most people could ever. I mean, maybe that's not fully true, but he could do it like pretty well. But then as he got older, just kind of like went backwards because he's like trying to pursue this like childlike innocence. But like some of the most talented abstract artists had such capabilities with realism, and people just don't really realize that. But he's kind of like the realistic side of Picasso, or more like the cubist side of Picasso, but then like adding like realism. And he does like funky shapes that are like abstract that like will divide two different faces together to make it look like it's one, or like it's two different photos, two different angles. I find that like super fascinating. And he's had Instagram videos where he like it'll be like a minute and a half over the span of, but it's like 5 or 10 minutes worth of footage, but it's like compressed, of him like spray painting like an eye or like a face. And so like that's definitely impacted the style with that for me, because I was like, how can I like do this super quickly? How can I like get something like that has draws in a lot of attention because it has like detail, but like do it really quickly. And so that like definitely came about strongly because of him. And also I just like pursuing like someone's story, like through the process of interview, and like why do they pick an image, like what does it mean to them, and just also kind of like Vic Blend's interview, like on the spot, like learning about someone else. So yeah,
that's cool. How do you balance like your life as a student but also like being like an art influencer?
Mm-hmm. Well, lately, like I haven't been doing much of the influencing. But last semester I was definitely doing like a lot, and it's definitely like really draining being on like Instagram every day. Like it kind of like, because like even if I like go on not to like consume media just to produce it, I'm gonna end up consuming it just because like you're waiting for it to download and you gotta like, or upload, and you have to like keep the app open, so you need to like stay on the app, and it's like you're gonna end up, for me, I just always end up scrolling. And so I think that was the part that like was the most, and also just the comments, because there's always gonna be so many negative comments.
Yeah.
And it's definitely been easy for me to let that get to me. It's been like harder to like just turn it off like I should be doing. But I think the other part is like it just made me realize like how important it is to work smarter and not harder, because of the views and like what that can lead to, and the possibilities that potentially can bring, the deals, brandships, whatever. It's just really enforced to me that like the college system and like art and that sort of thing is like they're not really teaching you anything in terms of business. Like, yes, they can teach you how to become a better artist and how to like learn technique, which I think is like really important, but it's not necessarily a spot to learn like some of the most important parts, which is like how to market yourself and how to be a businessman. And so that's been like interesting and like an interesting world to get into, like sending like dozens of emails back and forth with like L'Oreal or Amazon, and, like trying to make sure that you're not getting effed over by this paperwork that you have to sign, you know, in order to get paid for work you did or are doing. And so it's like that was like definitely interesting because like when I get emails, like for the most part, I'm just like, oh, I don't want to like answer. Or if I get text messages, I'm like, oh, like it's not that important, you know, I don't have to answer unless it's from like that specific thing you're waiting for. And so it then turned into the like, oh, when I get an email, like I need to look at it. And so it was like a different perspective, like taking phone calls like in the middle of class with someone maybe I'm collabing on a video with, or a business partner, or whatever, and or answering emails, like going to the bathroom while I'm in the middle of class. So like it was like a very different experience than like semesters in the past where like that wasn't necessarily something I had to worry about, or like maybe I was just messaging like a friend or a friend of a friend who's like wants a painting done or whatever. And it's like, you know, like most people who are like an artist or artist adjacent will have like a family friend or family member that wants a piece of art, you know, like that's not that like uncommon, but like you don't necessarily have someone from Amazon that wants to pay you $5,000 for like a piece of art. So like when like the numbers get higher and like the brands get bigger and the stakes kind of get higher, it's like a completely different experience because it's I put a completely different foot forward, you know, as compared to when it's like just with a friend. So it definitely, communication was like is super important with like this world as I like am branching into it, and it's something like I struggle with. And so like that has definitely been a key point to focus on.
Yeah. So how have you been like dealing with like negative comments or like the challenges and I guess this industry, especially like I guess spray paint or like stuff like that, isn't that really acknowledged? How do you like combat that?
I don't know. I think it's weird because there's like multiple sides that like are kind of attacking. And so like there's the people that don't necessarily understand like spray paint art, and they're just like, oh, what the fuck? Like I don't think graffiti's cool. Why the fuck is he gonna vandal like like for free? Like you used to be paying them. Like why would you vandalize that? That's like so dumb. And then there's like this other side of like you're not a real like other graffiti artists, especially like graffiti writers, not necessarily graffiti artists, people that do just illegal stuff, that it's like, oh, like you're a sellout, like you do it for money, like why are you taking this like world and bringing it into like the light? They hate it for like those reasons. They're like, oh, like you have like a terrible hand style, like that's not real graffiti, like that sucks. And then there's also like maybe like a painting artistic point of view of like that's not perfect, that's not like a good painting, or like that's bad. And so it's like weird that there's like multiple different angles of people that are like ignorant in different ways. And then there's like just people that are like ignorant, but it's like a good ignorant where they just think it's super cool. But that's dope too. But I don't know how to like combat that, so I just try to like avoid it. But like sometimes there are like comments that are like really intriguing, and I'm like, oh dang, I want to like read that, even though I probably shouldn't, and it's like still bad. And then I'll also like I have this app called Business Suite. It's basically like TikTok Studio, but for Facebook and Instagram combined. And so like I'll get like comment notifications, boom, 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 boom. And like maybe I'll see one, I'm like, oh, I know exactly what video they're talking about. I know exactly what they're hating on, and you know, and so like it's like easy to get like swept up into it. But sometimes there's just something that's just like interesting where I'm like, that's so different. Like I want to read. And it's like every other week, maybe I'll like respond to one. I was like, oh, okay, like that was like cool. But I guess I try not to get engaged. So like I just kind of like stay back from Instagram. Like I used to like prepare the algorithm or whatever, like posts that were similar to mine, and comment and like try to prep the algorithm so that when I would post like 30 minutes after like doing that for 30 minutes, it would like boost my post more, and then I would respond to comments for the first hour. It'd be like all over Instagram, like steak on doo-doo. Like I was like on it like really tight. But now I'm just like let it go, because maybe that does help, but I don't think it's like worth the headache. So yeah, I don't really know how to like deal with that in a better way. I guess I try not to. I think I avoid it.
That's cool. How has your artistic style developed or like changed over time? Did you always like stick with spray painting, or did you have like a whole journey?
I think right now spray painting is like number one, and like everything else is like kind of like on the side. And for me, like right now, it's like spray painting is like where the money's at, where the views is at. For me, it's like, oh, sounds like a car crash just happened. But it's like where the focus is. But in the past, it used to be like, all right, like I'm gonna like tattoo in my dorm, like in my old college in Pennsylvania, and then with that money, I'll like buy spray paint. And so like I was tattooing a lot more, and I spent a lot of free time at my mentor's tattoo shop. And that was awesome. And so I was kind of like tattooing was up here, and then spray painting was here, and it was kind of like spray painting was more for fun because like tattooing was like the main focus. And when I moved to Richmond, I thought that would be the case. But then I just started painting in the park, in Monroe Park particularly, and it just like, especially once the freshmen moved back, it just like took off. And so it just became like the main focus and has like stayed. And I did one semester in AFO, and then once I went to sculpture, I kind of like, especially in like the first semester, it was more like the basic classes. So it was more like sculpture, like technique. I was kind of forced a little bit out of my shell, like having to go into a more like 3D realm. And since then, being in that major, like it's definitely like pushed me in a 3D realm. But I definitely have had like the main focus of like, I am like a 2D spray painter. Like that is like where my technique and like skill lies. But it has been fun to like branch out and make, like most recently I had an installation where I made a bunch of metal spray paint out of spray paint cans. I like cut them open and made flowers. Okay. Yeah, and that was pretty fun. And then some of them were like, and like I like drilled them into like metal like pipes and like broken metal pieces, or like a vacuum cleaner handle thing, and like this one round thing of cardboard. And then it was a big bucket of like gray paint, instead of it being in water. And then there's a bunch of plastic bottles and more cans that were like all around it. And then I had this big painting that I spray painted, but then I burnt it with like a torch. And that was really, really great to get like shadows that were like literally burnt. So that was fun. So it's been nice to like branch into a 3D world and kind of bring those like techniques like into like painting, like adding like fire to a painting, because then it adds like shadow, but also texture because the paint like bubbles off. So it's been fun. And then also like spray foam, making like paintings 3D and then spray painting on top, or using like paper installation stuff. So it's been fun to like mix and match and bring it all together. But spray paint, I think, has definitely been a really big consistent throughout all of it. There was a time when it was like tattooing was a lot, but spray paint's always been there.
That's cool. And then I have one last question, and then we're good. Do you have any advice for people who like want to pursue art, or like want to pursue like this kind of career?
For sure. I think the main thing is few people, especially like in 2026, 2025, 2027, as like we go into the future, few people can get away with just posting their art, no personality, no pictures of themselves, no connection, no personality, nothing else. Like few people used to be able to, like in 2010, like if you're a super, 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 super talented, like top 1% artist, maybe more 1% of the 1% artist could do that. But like nowadays, like that is so not the case. Any of the Instagram reels and videos that I'm consuming for the most part, it's not just pictures anymore. It's like artists and their personality. And I fall in love with them as a person. So for example, Bellin, like he doesn't post that much, but when he does, like let's say it's him on a boat, I'm like, yo, this is fucking cool because I just love him as a person. I want to see more about him. I want to know, And so it's like, that is the relationship that I think people get attached to on the internet. And so like the normal person, like I think likes art, but they don't love art the way like an artist loves art. And so let them love you, let them connect with you. And so they're not going to be able to connect with you if you don't put yourself out there. And so it was like all the things that I didn't want to share, which was like so silly of me, like I don't know, like personality, like my face or whatever. Especially when I had like a normal amount of followers, like I was super paranoid, like, oh, like they this or that or whatever. Like, what if I was just like super paranoid about like anything and everything. Like, what if someone like hacks me or like figures out where I live or whatever? And it's like that's so like dumb. What like that crazy things could happen to anyone. Like it doesn't really matter. So I'm less paranoid about that now that I have way more followers and more eyeballs. So like the risk is potentially higher, but like the risk isn't even there. So really long story short, what I'm trying to say is like people have to connect with something, and the easiest thing to connect with is personality. Like art is hard to sell, personality is not. So like dive into that if you're trying to grow like a brand, a career, a business. Have a face, put a face to the name so people can like connect with you. Yeah.
Yeah. That's all my questions. Here.
Heck yeah, dude.